What's up, everyone? You're listening to WXSU. I'm JjLee back with the JjLee Hockey Show, and it's been 2 weeks now since I did a show last because last week was Thanksgiving, but back now, and I'm gonna start today off the with the biggest. There's a lot more to talk about from the past 2 weeks, but I'm gonna start off today with today's biggest news. The New York Rangers traded Jacob Trouba to the Anaheim Ducks for Urho Vakanainen. I'm probably mispronouncing that, and a 2025 fourth round pick. I'm surprised. I'm shocked that they were able to get rid of Truba. That's obviously been a thing they've been trying to do for the past couple of years now, but as he's been one of the worst contracts in the league, but I mean, no one was going to want to take on that $8.5 million. He, I just did not think it was going to happen because they've tried multiple times. It didn't happen, and no one wanted him. And then it was revealed earlier today that four teams were interested in him. I believe it was the Ducks, the Blue Jackets, the Red Wings, and the Senators. And it looked like I was surprised that four teams were interested in him, but it looks like by that point he was going to get traded. And now here we are. He's now no longer a New York Ranger. Ranger fans are obviously excited about that, but he's just not been good this season. He's not been good the past few seasons, but this season especially, he's in 24 games this season, he has 0 goals and 6 points. I know he is a defenseman, but his defensive numbers aren't good either. He just brings more. He's more of a liability to the Rangers, or he was more of a liability to the Rangers than a help because he's not that good of a player, and he was taking up so much cap space. So great move for the Rangers to get rid of him, especially because they didn't have to give up. They usually to dump a bad contract to a team, you have to attach like a first round pick or some sort of asset, or you have to retain some salary or something, and they didn't do any of that. So amazing move for the Rangers. Ducks on the other hand, I don't know, I don't understand it for them because like we do see rebuilding teams take on bad contracts, like I said, but once again, usually a first round pick or a prospect or some salary retained is attached to that, and it wasn't here. So I'm really surprised the Ducks agreed to this. But what a fleece by the Rangers for sure. Staying with the Rangers news because I literally just saw this before I got on here because that's why I was a little late starting too because I was trying to get all the details about this. The Rangers also just signed Igor Shesterkin to an 8-year deal worth 11.5 million a year. It's finally done. It's been one of the biggest topics the past few months on how much will Igor Shesterkin get, how long will he remain a New York Ranger, and now we have the answers to that. It was a couple months ago. It was reported obviously that he was offered $11 million and rejected it, basically indicating that he wanted $12 million. I thought my thing was, would 12 million be a little much? Yes, and honestly, 11.5 isn't much better. I mean, I'm not saying it's a huge overpay, but I'm not sure I would have given him that, or I'm not sure I'd say he's quite worth that much. However, the thing is, he's just so valuable to his Rangers team. Like so often, their other players are so inconsistent or don't show up in the playoffs, and he's the one who does. So I just really did not think the Rangers were going to win anything without him. So it's one of those things where are they paying him a little much? Yes, but I think they just kind of have to do it because I really don't think they're going to win without him. Of course, it is a little better now that they don't have Jacob Trouba's $8 million or $8.5 million anymore. That they've now cleared up a lot more cap space than they would have had if we just signed Igor. But yeah, Shesterkin's there to stay for the next 8 years. He has slipped up recently a little bit, or he was playing really good to start the year, and then he has kind of regressed the past few weeks. He now has a .908 save percentage and a 3.05 goals against average, but we know that he's still one of the best goalies in the league. Excuse me. He has, of course, he has his down times, but when it's all said and done, he's definitely one of the best goalies in the league. Had that amazing season in 2021-22, then 2022-23 and 2023-24 was still one of the top goalies in the league. Really showed up with the Rangers in the playoffs too, and then this season, of course, had a great start. Has dipped a little bit recently, like I said, but I think he will get back on track. I think he is still, if not the best goalie, a top 3 goalie in the league for sure. Now I'm gonna go back. Now I've gone like the big news of today. because there was such big news today, I thought I'd start with that. But I'm going to go back to a few weeks ago it's been a few weeks since I did the show last. Last episode 2 weeks ago, I mentioned how Jim Montgomery had been fired earlier that week. He got hired a couple days later by the St. Louis Blues. Gets fired. The Blues fired their head coach Drew Bannister and hired Jim Montgomery, who was fired just 5 days earlier by the Bruins. And I knew Montgomery was going to get a new job because I really still think he's a good coach, and that I'm not what's the word? What am I trying to say here? I feel like, did Boston have a bad start? Yes, but I still think that he is a legit a good coach. I knew he was going to get a new job. I did not think it was going to happen just 5 days. I did not think he was going to get hired just 5 days after he was fired, though. That was a bit of a surprise to me, but he. But I think it was a great move by St. Louis, though. He they got off to a bad start this year, but he's turned them around since then. I'm gonna check their record the past recently. They've won their past 2 games, and they've overall won most of the games since he's been hired. So I should check the record before I start the show, but whatever now. But yeah, they've won most of their games since he's been hired. So it's just coaching can really make that much of a change. I don't think the Blues are a good team on paper. I think they're still very mid, but the way they're playing under him, he might get them to the playoffs or into a wild card spot. And I think so. Of course, going and then looking at the record, or with Drew Bannister being fired, I think that they definitely had a bad start. However, he was hired less than a year ago, and you don't usually see that. Or now it's been over a year. I'm pretty sure over the past 2 weeks. But when he was fired, he was hired less than a year before being fired, and you don't usually see a coach get fired that quickly. But I think Jim Montgomery being on the market did have a part in that, basically saying, yes, the Blues did have a bad start, but I don't think Drew Bannister would have gotten fired now if it wasn't for Jim Montgomery, such a good coaching option, being on the market. I definitely think Montgomery being an option player contributed to Bannister losing his job. But I think that I think this is a great move for St. Louis, though. I said the next team to fire their coach, or when Montgomery got fired, I said the next team to fire their coach, he should be one of the top candidates, or if not the top candidate. And sure enough, the next team to fire their coach hired him. So good for him to get their chance in the NHL. Next, we had kind of a funny story. Travis Boyd, who was called up from the Iowa Wild to play for the Minnesota Wild, so called up to the NHL a couple weeks ago. They were away in Calgary, and they got there during a snowstorm, so the transportation couldn't get him all the way to the arena. He full on ran through the streets of Calgary in the snow to get to the game on time. It just shows the dedication these players have, and I do question what it's like to be when you're traded, because a lot of times when players get traded mid-season like that, if the team has a game later that day, then they'll get there as the game's about to start. Or sometimes they get there after the game start. They don't get to have the usual prep routine they have for games, or they don't get to have the full all the warm-ups and all the stretching. So I'm pretty sure it's a hectic situation, but that is Travis Boyd's hometown team, so I'm sure he's excited to play. Here he was excited to get that opportunity, and I just thought it was a funny story to talk about here. Moving on, we saw Sidney Crosby get a 600th career goal. Congrats to him. I've said multiple times already, I'm a Caps fan, but I have a lot of respect for Crosby. He's a legend, so congratulations, Sid, on 600 goals. Next, we have another trade here. The Colorado Avalanche trade Justus Annunen in a 2025 sixth-round pick to the Predators in exchange for Scott Wedgwood. I was a little surprised by this too, because Annunen this season with Colorado had a .872 save percentage and a 3.23 goals against average, and which obviously is not good, but he's still pretty young for a goalie. I believe he's 24, and Colorado's been struggling to find a good goalie for a few years now. So I thought they should have held on to him, since he is still young, see what he can turn into. But I guess they just didn't see they didn't see a lot of potential in him, or didn't see a reason to keep him, because they got Scott Wedgwood, which this season he started off, he didn't have a great time in Nashville. A .878 save percentage and a 3.69 goals against average. But then with Colorado in 2 games, his first 2 games with Colorado, he has a .929 save percentage and a 2.26 goals against average. So he's been kind of back and forth the past few years, but he's pretty much just a backup. He's not really going to be a starter on the team or anything. So basically the Avalanche are trading a young traded a young goalie who is a backup now, but he's still pretty young, for a veteran who's a backup and likely isn't going to ever be a starter. So they did get so I know, they're trying to win now, but I don't think Wedgwood's enough. Like, I don't think Wedgwood's that much better than Noonan to really make a difference for them right now. I just think that they should have. I kind of think they should have held into a Noonan and see what he could do, because Wedgwood, chances are, is not going to be a starter by this point. Next we had a trade, another trade. The Columbus Blue Jackets trade Jacob. Where is that coming from? David Jiricek and a 5th round. David Jiricek and a 5th round pick to Minnesota Wild in exchange for Damon Hunt's 2025 first round pick and a 2025 second round pick and a 4th round pick. I'm not sure. I couldn't see what specified year the 4th round pick is, but I'm guessing it's going to be this year, or I should say next year, because we're still in 2024. But basically in 2025, I think it will be. This season, David Jiricek has 6 goals, 0 assists, and 1 point. 6 games played, 0 goals, 1 assist for 1 point. With the Blue Jackets, his career, he has 53 games played, 1 goal, 10 assists for 11 points. So he is a defenseman, so he is going to have less points. But as a whole, he's only played 53 games and really hasn't got his career on track yet. Which that's not necessarily a bad thing, because he was a 2022 draft pick, 6 overall. So he's still very young, and his career hasn't really gotten started yet. But I think maybe he can get the opportunity in Minnesota and get his career underway. He's going to a great team, great guys to surround himself with and get mentored by. So I think this is a good move for him. In exchange, the Blue Jackets get Damon Hunt, which he was a 3rd round pick in 2020. He's only played 13 career games, but they also get a 1st round pick though and a 2nd round pick. So I'd say this is a good move for both sides. Columbus gets 2 good draft picks, and Minnesota gets a young player who still looks like he could turn into something. So we'll see who wins this trade, but I think that it's a good move for both sides, as well as for Jiricek. Next up on our big storyline this week, Patrick Laine, of course, got injured. He was trying to get his career back on track before the season, then got injured. He came back this week and it's been amazing. He currently has 2 goals in 2 games. He scored a goal in each of his first 2 games this season, which I had a feeling that he was going to cook when he came in, because he just was so determined. And you look in the past 3 seasons, last year, 2023-24, 18 games played, 6 goals, 3 assists, 9 points. 2022-23, 55 games played, 22 goals, 30 assists for 52 points. And 2021-22, 56 games played, 26 goals, 30 assists for 56 points. So he's been injured a lot. Of course, had to enter the mental health player assistance program. But when he's played, he's actually not been bad. He's been near a point per game the past 3 the previous 3 seasons, not including this year, but his last 3 years in Columbus. He has, in 129 games played, 54 goals, 63 assists for 117 points. So he's been close to a point per game in that time. And I think he's really about to get his career back on track this year, have a big year in Montreal. I think he was an amazing acquisition from Montreal, and I think that he's ready. I think he's going to cook now. I think he's just that determined. Speaking of injuries, though, we have Tyler Seguin out 4 to 6 months following hip surgery. That'll be a big loss for Dallas. He's had a great he bounced back last year and is having an even bigger year this year. Currently has, in 19 games played, 9 goals, 11 assists for 20 points, and I think that it'll be a loss for Dallas. However, they're still a very deep team, and I saw the news. I forget which source I saw it from. Good try. I'm gonna check here. I can't find it, but he was, but he's, but it said they're going to try and use his money as like, or like use take it. Dallas is going to try to take advantage of the LTIR, and Sagan should be back in time for the playoffs. So basically, they're going to do what Tampa did, infamously did in 2021, and multiple other teams have tried doing and have done, like Vegas has done the past few years, which obviously people don't like it, but there really is no rule against this, so you can't get mad at the teams necessarily for doing it. But yeah, he'll be a loss for Dallas. This he will be a loss for Dallas, but I think they'll still be fine because they're so deep. And if he can come back in time for the playoffs and they can use his money to get someone else at the trade deadline, then it's gonna work out pretty well for them. Kind of like the Lightning did with Kucherov in 2021. Of course, Kucherov's a bigger team. Kucherov is a bigger part of that team than saying this to Dallas right now, but you get the point. Basically, the player's out for a long time, but he'll still be back in time for the playoffs, and the team's good enough to make the playoffs without him. So they just use his money to further add to the team. Next up, we have the Chicago Blackhawks fired head coach Luke Richardson the other day, and this really was no surprise. This season, Chicago has an 8-16-2 record for 18 points, which is which is 18 points. They've just not been good this year. Of course, they've not been good the past 2 years, and they're still in a rebuild. But I think a big part too is that Connor Bedard also regressed this year so far. Last season, he had in 68 games played, 22 goals, 39 assists for 64 points. And this season, he has 26, or he has 26 games played, 5 goals, 14 assists for 19 points. So last year he was on a 74-point pace, whereas this year he's on a 60-point pace. So he's had a drop off, and of course when the young player who's supposed to be a superstar falls like regresses like that in his sophomore year. Of course, I know sophomore slump's a thing, but obviously, it was not a good look on the coach. So seeing this is no surprise. Also, he's the only player I believe on Chicago with over 15 points, or he was. I'm not sure if anyone that has scored more than that recently. But bottom line, the Blackhawks were, even for a team that's rebuilding, there was a lot of disappointments for them so far this season. So seeing Luke Richardson fire is not a surprise. But anyway, I'm going to play some music for a bit, and then I'll get back in a few minutes. All right, welcome back. I'm now going to talk about some of the things we've seen, like really how the teams are doing, like the stats of different teams right now. Currently, in the Metro, starting off once again. Caps are in first. They've been on a roll, been wagging. I'm gonna talk about them like I always do at the end of the show, but I've loved what I'm seeing from them. Devils are tied with them in points though at both at 36. They've been looking really good too. They're just really solid. I don't really see like glaring weaknesses on this team. Offense is great, defense is great, goaltending. It's good now. I'm not sure how much I trust Jake Allen to sustain it, but I think that. But as of now, it is looking good. So there's like I said, there's really no glaring weakness on this team. So I definitely think they are going to be right there in the mix during the playoffs to win the division or to make it to the conference finals. Then you got the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes still doing good with 35 points. Moving on, though, we got the Rangers, who have been struggling recently. Currently with 27 points and they're in 24 games, so that's a .562 save percentage, points percentage. And you look at them; they've past 10 games, they're currently 4-6-0. So they've been losing a lot of games recently. They lost, I believe, 5 in a row last week, or between last week and week before, and then I believe they beat Montreal and then they lost again. So that means in 7 games their one win was against Montreal, or they only had one win, and it was against Montreal, one of the worst teams in the league. So they've definitely been struggling. I really don't like it. I think the thing is, we saw a couple weeks ago that the Rangers might try and switch stuff up with the core, with their core, and it might honestly be time because they've been going with this core for since like 2021, and it's just not working. Something's got to change, and I'm not sure who might get traded now. I mean, we just saw Trouba trade today, but like I'm not sure if like maybe Kreider might get traded, Zibanejad maybe even Panarin, but I just don't really know like what they're going to do here or how they're going to fix it. I think it could just be a slump right now, but yeah, definitely concerning for the Rangers if this doesn't turn around soon. Because this division is so tight and so competitive that if you, that like they're now tied in points with the Flyers, and like the Rangers do have 2 games in hand, so that's why they are above the Flyers. But if the Rangers aren't careful, then these other teams in the bottom 4 are going to catch them, and they'll suddenly be out of a playoff spot. So, but then like I said, Flyers below them at 5, Penguins at 6 with 120. Excuse me, with 126. Wait, why am I? Sorry, Penguins at 6 with 26 points. I'm not sure where I was saying 126. Their current, they've heated up recently. They've won their past 4 games, but I really just don't know if they're. I feel like they might be a little too far behind now. With they might be a little too far behind. I mean, I guess they are just 1 point behind the Rangers, but the Rangers also have 3 games in hand, so it's going to be really hard for the Penguins to catch up. They could do it, but I'm not sure how much I see it happening. Then below them, you got the Blue Jackets with you got the Blue Jackets with 25 points in 25 games, so exactly at 500, and then last in the division, you got the Islanders with 25 points as well, but Blue Jackets have 2 games in hand, and the Islanders, the thing is with them is they've just blown so many leads. There's been so many. They could have a much better record right now, but their ability to close off in the third period just isn't there. And like I believe I saw they've let in more goals this season in the third period than the first 2 periods combined, and I'm not sure what else I do with this team because people are saying fire Lou Lamoriello, and while I do think that it is time for him to go, I think his time has passed him as a general manager. I'm not sure that he's the problem here because he's given them like a decent team on paper. I wouldn't say it's elite, but I wouldn't say it's bad either at all. But just so many of the players, I know Barzal and Pelech are out right now, but just so many of the players are not you know, it's just so it just isn't like working with this team. It's like they just lose and give up in the third period, and they fire Lane Lambert last year when they're blowing a lot of leads. Patrick Waugh comes in, and it looks like they're going to do better and everything. But now the same thing's happening under Patrick Waugh, and it makes me question: do they just need to shake up the core because I had a conversation with my dad about this, and basically we were just talking about how the coach can push the players and everything, make them work hard, motivate them, but if they just don't want to put in the work, they don't want to be motivated, then there's really nothing the coach can do. So it makes me question: do they just have to tear up the core or maybe not quite tear it up, like retool a bit and just switch up the core and to maybe just make the core more gritty and hardworking. I'm not saying they're not working hard, by the way. I'm not saying that they're being lazy or anything. This is just like a prediction or something that I'm just thinking like of ways that what could be going wrong with this team because I really don't know. But usually the first thing you do in situations is fire a coach. They fired the coach last year when this was happening, and yeah, it looked better for a little bit, but now it's still happening again. So very, it is kind of a confusing situation why the Islanders start blowing so many leads like 2 years because it's now happening, like I said, 2 years in a row. Moving on to the Atlantic, you've got Toronto at first with 100. Sorry, why do I keep saying 100? I'm scatterbrained today. Sorry. You have the Toronto Maple Leafs at first with 34 points. Florida Panthers second with 34 points, which the Panthers had slump recently, but they have kind of come out of it. They're now 5-4-1 in their last 10, so they've started to pick it back up a little. Boston third with 31 points. They've won their past three. Tampa Bay fourth with 28 points. They're 6-3-1 their last 10. Then you got Buffalo in fifth with 25 points. Ottawa sixth with 24 points. Detroit seventh with 24 points, and Montreal eighth with 23 points. I say that maybe Buffalo could sneak into the playoffs, but I think that the top four teams now, the top four that were also the top four teams last year, are going to be the top four teams again. I'm not sure. I don't really see. I definitely don't see Montreal or Detroit sneaking into the playoffs or in a wild card spot, and I don't think that Buffalo could catch one of these teams like Boston or Tampa, but I really think Boston and Tampa are going to find ways, and they're going to make the playoffs. Moving on now, you got the Minnesota Central. You got the Minnesota Wild, who are now first in the league, they're still first in the league now. They've surpassed the Winnipeg Jets. Their record is currently 17-4-4. They've won 4 in a row. They're 7-2-1 the last 10. Whereas Winnipeg obviously had a historic start, but they're not 4-6-0. They're not 4-6-0 in the last 10, so they've started to slip up a bit. Definitely something to watch because they start off so well. It's like they were unbeatable to start off the season. Now they started to slip up, and I did question a little bit how sustainable their success was, and maybe it just wasn't. Maybe I thought they were definitely a good team. I thought they were definitely going to be a playoff team, but I did not think they were quite as elite as their record was showing at first. And looks like I was right. I think they've been kind of struggling recently. I think they will get back on track again, but I don't think that they're as good as they looked at first this season. Moving on, you got Dallas in third with a 6-4-0 record. Colorado fourth with a 5-0 record. Which Colorado, if they could just stay healthy and find a good goalie, then I think they'll be good. But their injuries this season, plus the bad goaltending, really costed them. I think they will still make the playoffs, and how much of a contender they are really depends, I think, on how healthy they are, one, and if they're able to find a goalie, because I don't think Georgiev's going to be able to be their goalie through the playoffs. We saw him last year in the playoffs. He was pretty bad, so I think they do need to try and find a goalie at the trade deadline if they want to make a deep run again, but yeah, Colorado's catching up a bit, and I think they will be. I think they will be fine. Obviously has a slow start, but I think they will make the playoffs. Then you got St. Louis in fifth place with 28 points. Utah in sixth with 24 points. Nashville in seventh with 20 points. Which Nashville's season just keeps getting worse and worse. They were supposed to be one of the top teams this year. It feels like not that long ago we were talking about what a great offseason they had, how much they're going to improve this season, but it just hasn't worked out for them, and I don't know what else could go wrong for them this year. It's been miserable for them. And finally, you have Chicago at the bottom of the Central with 18 points in 26 games. There's no surprise there. Now in the Pacific we have Vegas in first place with 37 points, still going strong. LA with 33 points second, which, LA's won 4 in a row. Vegas has won 2 in a row. Vegas is 6-3-1 in the last 10. LA's 6-4 in the last 10. So they've clearly been the top of the Pacific this year. Calgary's third with 31 points, currently a 13-9-5 record, but I don't think they're going to sustain it. They've already started struggling more, and I think it's going to continue. I think that the start to the season was a fluke, and I think now they're coming back down to earth and are one of the worst teams in the league still. Then in fourth place you have Vancouver with 30 points, and I think just like some other teams, I think they will get their game on track again, but just like the Avalanche had a slower start to the season once again, but I think they will be fine. And then same with Edmonton below them in fifth place, currently 30 points in 26 games. So also had a very disappointing start, but I think they will. But they've been catching fire recently, so I think they will continue that and be a safe playoff team, be a contending team by the end of the season. Then bottom three Pacific, you have the Kraken with 27 points, Sharks with 25 points, and 23 points for the Ducks. So yeah, Pacific. It's like Metro. The Metro is, I'd say, most competitive here. You've got Atlantic too. I mean, I think those four teams will be the ones that make it, but those bottom four teams really could sneak into. Central, Minnesota's taking over Winnipeg, and you got Colorado, Dallas, but then like for the Pacific, it really is Vegas and LA who's been the powerhouses. I think that the Oilers and Canucks will pick it up, but as of now, it's mostly been the only like proven legit teams for this season at least are Vegas and LA. So yeah, that's what's going on with the league standings right now. I'm gonna once again play music for a few minutes, and then I'll be back for the final part where I talk about the Caps. All right, back with the final segment of my show, talking about the Caps for a few minutes. Since I did the show last time, they had a 3-2 loss against New Jersey, a 4-1 win against the Florida Panthers, a 5-4 win against the Tampa Bay Lightning, 5-4 win against the New York Islanders, 6-5 win against the New Jersey Devils, and then this past week they lost they lost to San Jose Sharks 2-1 in overtime. So that was obviously a cheap loss. They played. I thought that game they played well defensively, but couldn't convert on all their scoring chances. But still, they had 4-game win streak before that. And the offense has just been rolling recently for the Caps. Jacob Chikrin won third star of the week last week, and the week ending December 1st, and it was much deserved. He had 3 goals and 4 assists for 7 points in that span. So he's just been an amazing addition for the Caps. Also, Spencer Carver and the Caps coaching staff got coaching staff for the month of November with a 10-4-1 record. So Caps have just been a wagon all season, and I'm absolutely loving it. Of course, it's just so amazing to see how the team's playing together, because going back to this, I think the coaching does have something to do with it. Like, of course, the players themselves are doing great playing together, but the atmosphere of the team is just amazing. You could tell, of course, against Tampa Bay last week, Charlie Lindgren had that terrible own goal mistake, but the Caps, they were of course in trouble then, but they didn't panic. They still support Lindgren, their teammate, and continue playing their game, and it paid off for them as they ended up winning in the end. So this team is just so resilient. They're playing so well together, and it's great. It's just so fun to watch and so great to watch. And then as we know, this has been all been without Ovi, because he's been injured the past 2 weeks, and he's now been skating again this week. So we'll see when he can come back. Hopefully sooner rather than later. But yeah, the team is just proving that they're a contender again. They're not to be messed with or taken lightly. They are a serious team again after a few years of not being as good. They're back to being contenders this year. On top of that, looking to the future, you got Ryan Leonard, their top prospect, who might be coming over next season. He says he's been watching a lot of the Caps games this year. The source for this is Russian Machine Never Breaks. He says that he's been watching a lot of the Caps games this year, really likes what he's seeing from them, and hopes to make his NHL debut soon. So we'll see. We'll see if it happens next year. I believe they said his plan was to come over after his sophomore year, which would be after this year. So if he can, great. I think he's one of the top prospects in hockey. He's the top prospect the Caps have had in a long time. So for him to come over next season would be amazing. So looking to the future, but yeah, just great. Caps are doing so amazing right now. They've got their prospect pool's really gotten better the past couple of years too, with guys like Leonard, Andrew Crystal, and even though not not prospects anymore, but still a young guy. Connor McMichael's been doing amazing this year. Has had an amazing breakout year. So I'm loving what I'm seeing from the Caps right now. I'm loving all the news around them. But that's about it for today. Thank you for watching once again, or sorry, listening once again. I'm so used to saying watching because I make a lot of videos, so I'm so used to saying watching. But thank you for listening once again, and I'll see you probably next week. I've got finals next week, so I should be done them by that point. But if I'm not, then have an amazing holiday, and I'll see you next semester. But once again, I should be back next week for one more show before the semester ends.